This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Wednesday, April 1st. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you being with us on Africa 54. Now, the highly contagious coronavirus continues its deadly march across the United States. President Donald Trump and his top medical advisors are urging all Americans to follow strict social distancing guidelines. In the U.S., nearly 4,000 people have died from COVID-19, and the total confirmed cases now tops 187,000. More than 850 people succumbed to the disease on Tuesday, so far the most in any single day. At least 50% of the new fatalities were New York State, the epicenter of the pandemic. Worldwide, over 850,000 people have been infected with the coronavirus, and more than 42,000 have died, according to the latest tally from Reuters. Now to Africa, where the coronavirus outbreak is forcing Ethiopia to postpone its parliamentary elections scheduled for August, according to the country's electoral board. The vote is being regarded as an important test of the reformist agenda of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. In Nigeria, activity in Lagos and Abuja came to a screeching halt on Tuesday as the nation entered a two-week lockdown to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Streets in both cities were mostly empty except for ambulances and police vehicles. At security checkpoints, cars were thoroughly searched. Businesses and research facilities worldwide have jumped into the global fight to defeat the coronavirus. With respirators in short supply in many countries, a German university is developing basic no-frills devices to aid COVID-19 sufferers who are on the path to recovery, freeing more complicated models for those whose lives are still in danger. VOA's Arasha Basadi reports.
Scientists at the Philipps University of Marburg have developed a simplified respirator. PhD student Caroline Sommer.
We have carried out tests that show that this device is ready to go on the market, but we don't have approval yet. And we appeal to politicians so we can get approval and our device can go on the market as soon as possible and get to hospitals.
This is one of two models. It uses an automated, modified hand pump with extra features. Researchers say the design benefits patients already over the worst symptoms of the novel coronavirus.
A patient who is badly affected should not be connected directly to our model. He should be connected to a professional respirator first, the goal being to relieve the health system. Then the professional ventilator would be free again, and an acute patient could be connected to that one.
The other model scientists developed already exists in many households as a treatment for sleep apnea. Developers added hardware to make it a respirator.
It works by applying positive airway pressure on the person who uses it, so he breathes easily and inhales and exhales without problem. All we did was build an accessory.
Sommer notes CPAP, or continuous positive airway pressure devices, are more common in wealthier countries. The simple hand pump model could provide a lifeline in rich and poor countries alike. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News, Washington.
Peace Corps volunteers who have been evacuated are looking at the long-term effect this global coronavirus pandemic could have on this humanitarian organization that sends American volunteers to live in developing countries. VOA Brian Padden explains.
Alicia Moreno was a Peace Corps volunteer in East Timor, working with a community development group before being ordered to evacuate to the capital Dili on March 15th due to the coronavirus threat.
Everyone was just like, wait, what? Like, we assumed that we were going to the capital to try and be all together so that we weren't burdens on our community. And then they're just like, okay, we're sending you on the next plane.
The Peace Corps terminated the service of all its volunteers, including Danielle Collier, who was working only 3 months as an education volunteer in North Macedonia. Evacuated back to her family's home in Utah, Collier plans to reapply as soon as the agency resumes operations.
I don't feel like my work there is done, and I just feel like after this craziness, the relationships have only become stronger, even from afar.
Volunteers like Ashley Resurreccion, who served as a teacher in Thailand, worry that Peace Corps may not recover from this worldwide shutdown.
We are, representatives of the United States, and we are making all these communities and relationships with other countries. And now that we've completely cut that off, I don't know how we can recover from that, or if we will.
But the Peace Corps insists it will resume operations once the pandemic ends. While U.S. foreign aid opponents have tried to cut the humanitarian agency's budget in the past, the Peace Corps continues to maintain strong bipartisan support in Congress. Brian Padden, VOA News, Washington.
The U.S. military hospital ship Comfort is in New York to help free up hospital beds in a city desperately battling the COVID-19 outbreak. The massive ship is just one of many military assets deployed to help America's national response to the virus. VOA's Pentagon correspondent Carla Bob has the latest.
The USNS Comfort is now treating patients in New York. And comfort is exactly what that hospital ship is bringing New Yorkers.
Feeling the presence of the United States military here just gave me a sense that things were going to be okay.
The ship isn't the only military asset treating New York patients this week. The Army Corps of Engineers helped turn the massive Jacob Javits Convention Center in Manhattan into a temporary hospital for nearly 3,000 patients.
The nice thing about convention centers, you might not know this, every 10 feet there's a great big steel door on the floor. You open it up, and in there is all the electrical, there's cold water, there's hot water, and there's a place for sewage.
The Comfort and the Javits Center are for non-coronavirus patients to make room for contagious COVID patients in local hospitals. But the general says the Army Corps of Engineers is building 3 other temporary hospitals in New York that will have the self-contained spaces needed to care for coronavirus patients. In all, his team is looking into 114 facilities across the country for temporary hospital sites, including the massive McCormick Place Convention Center in Chicago. On the West Coast, the Mercy Hospital ship continues to take in Los Angeles patients, and the National Guard has deployed thousands across the country to help deliver testing kits and administer the tests. But the military isn't immune to the virus. Hundreds of service members have tested positive too, including more than 100 on board the USS Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier. Carla Babb, VOA News, Washington.
Now for a global financial update. Asian markets traded mostly in negative territory Wednesday as news on the coronavirus pandemic continues to be grim. Japan's Nikkei index lost more than 850 points at the closing bell as investors worried that the growing number of COVID-19 infections in the country will force the government to place Tokyo on lockdown. Elsewhere in Asia, the Hang Seng in Hong Kong lost more than 2% by late Wednesday, while the Shanghai index on mainland China lost more than 0.5%. Australia's S&P ASX index proved to be the region's lone bright spot, gaining 3.5% on the day. Asia's rough Wednesday was a spillover from Tuesday's losses on Wall Street, with the Dow Jones, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq all falling 1% or above. The losses capped an end to the worst 3-month period since 1987, losing 23% of its value during the quarter. Amid the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic, global airlines are not expected to recover from their worst ever crisis until the last quarter of this year, and any rebound may be short-lived if there's a new winter wave of the coronavirus, according to the International Air Transport Association. The Transport Association says many carriers, even those with strong finances, are struggling to survive for that long, as the industry burned $61 billion in cash this quarter because of a 70% drop in traffic and revenue. Airlines are set to post a collective net loss of $39 billion this quarter, as the majority of their aircraft are grounded to travel restrictions and weather lockdowns. Alexandria Dujunier, Director General of the International Air Transport Association, says the losses are staggering and is urging governments to speed up bailouts for airlines facing estimated full-year revenue losses of $252 billion. U.S. Congress passed legislation last Friday authorizing $25 billion for passenger airlines, as well as $4 billion for cargo carriers and $3 billion in cash for airport contractors. Now, as COVID-19 continues to spread, so is concern of its potential impact on economies in developing countries, many who are using available resources to combat the virus. Eric Lecomte, the executive director of Jubilee USA Network, tells Africa 54's Ayeng Dengbio the International Monetary Fund should issue a moratorium on debt repayment for some of those countries so they can instead use those funds to strengthen health infrastructures.
No doubt we will see a very strong economic impact that most developing countries will face around the world, whether they be the so-called middle-income countries in the Caribbean or whether they be some of the poorest countries in the world like Mozambique. This is a very severe shock, and it'll likely be most significant on the economies and health systems of the developing world, but it also will quite likely hurt the developing world because we'll likely have a financial crisis that's spurred that affects every country in the world because of COVID-19.
This is a concern to, I think, a lot of countries because Africa does have some of the fastest growing economies in the world. There's a Brookings Institution report that says that Senegal, Rwanda, and Niger, these are some of the countries that were projected to have a positive economic outlook this year. So knowing, how unpredictable COVID-19 has been, which countries in Africa are you most concerned about right now?
Well, we're really concerned about most countries in Africa. I think the reality is when we talk about economies that we're looking at growth, many of those actual economies and countries are already requesting emergency assistance from the International Monetary Fund. But when we look at Africa broadly, and in particular sub-Saharan Africa, we already know that countries throughout Africa have been facing a new emerging debt crisis, that there have been great challenges in raising revenue, and we still see staggering numbers in terms of extreme poverty. These are real concerns. And if we look at the majority of countries, even the most developed in sub-Saharan Africa, when we talk about how many critical care beds or critical care units they have per country, most sub-Saharan African countries only have 50 beds per country. So coupling that with the magnitude of a financial crisis, with health systems long being destroyed because of austerity policies that have long been a part of lending and debt restructuring in the region, Africa is a place where we are very concerned.
So, Eric, what can developing countries do to protect themselves? What are some immediate measures that you think countries can take to kind of protect their economies as well as their workforce, really?
Well, one of the pieces that's absolutely urgent for all economies around the world is to be able to put in place stronger unemployment benefits, to increase their social safety nets, their floors of protection, to be able to ensure that more aid is getting to communities that need it, workers that are unemployed, as well as poor people. And so this will demand debt relief and increased financing for many countries in order to do this. I think one of the most important things that we're looking at African countries doing, many African countries are doing. Just earlier this week, on Tuesday, most of the finance ministers across Africa called for a debt payment moratorium to stop paying all of their debts. So how much money does that mean for the continent of Africa? That means $44 billion. It's a huge amount and is very significant because it's right now, if those debt payment moratoriums go forward, that countries can start to bolster their health systems and critically increase their numbers of critical care beds and units in those countries.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a Ghanaian social enterprise tech company fights the multi-billion global counterfeit trade. We'll be back. Welcome back to Africa 54. After years of civil war, Sudan's new transitional unity government is urging citizens to work towards reconciliation and forgiving perpetrators of violence. But will these measures work in a deeply divided nation? Chika Odua reports from Juba.
31-year-old Junior Dow has still not gotten over the loss of his slain cousin. He was killed as a soldier fighting in South Sudan's civil war.
So this is him?
3 of Junior's siblings also died, and his mother was tortured when rebel fighters dunked her into a water tank.
My mom was put in there like 4 times. She fainted 4 times. And that is one thing that has made her not to come back to South Sudan again. She hated it so much.
Dow has not seen his mother since 2016. He calls her often at the refugee camp in Kenya where she lives. But she has vowed to never return to her homeland. After losing so many family members to the conflict, Dow was left with resentment and bitterness towards other ethnic communities in South Sudan.
So I had in mind I want to get a gun so that if I get a chance to revenge. That was the only option I had in mind.
The people of South Sudan have endured decades of war. The intense fighting has left deep scars on the nation. In February, rival politicians, President Salva Kiir and former Deputy Riek Machar finally formed a transitional unity government after more than a year of negotiation and delay.
We hope they will be up to the task, particularly reconciliation, which really require a lot of time, require a lot of effort. The political leaders in this country have created those grievances by, making the civilian to take sides of these political quarrels. And taking side has created these enmities among those communities. So with peace coming back now, I think it is time to mend those broken relations.
Mending broken relations is exactly what this government committee is trying to do.
One line of reasoning is let's forgive and forget. That's one line of reasoning. The other line of reasoning is too much harm has been done. People have been victimized, massacres have taken place, crimes have taken place. Here you come to another point of view. The African perspective generally is to try to reconcile, maybe compensate, and not talk in terms of punishment.
The government is promoting the African approach, and other initiatives are in place to do the same. A program called Power to Forgive, organized by South Sudanese churches, offers a telephone hotline service. People from across the country coping with bitterness and war-related trauma call in to speak with a trained counselor. Christianity is the major religion in South Sudan, and churches are making an effort to restore peace.
That is the role the church plays, to reconcile people back to God and reconcile people with themselves and with others.
In another part of Juba, young activists are organizing an event called Peace Camp. It offers a safe space for young people to talk about the pains of the war.
The Peace Camps brings the people together to be able to create relationships on personal levels, so you get to meet somebody from a certain community that you're always looked at as an enemy.
Activists hope these initiatives will bring about small positive changes to rebuild a nation torn apart by endless war. Junior Dow says he's learned to let go of his hatred. Even though many of his friends and relatives have died, he enjoys spending time with the ones who have survived. Chika Odua for VOA News, Juba, South Sudan.
In our technology report, a Ghanaian social enterprise tech company, Mpidegree, is on a mission to fight the global counterfeit trade, which accounts for a whopping $200 billion per year. Mpidegree has created a way to quickly confirm the legitimacy of real medicines from counterfeit drugs sold under a product name without proper authorization. Africa 54 technology reporter Paul Ndiho spoke with Eugene Kweku-Boadu, Head of Corporate Affairs and Marketing for Mpidegree.
Mpidegree is a social enterprise technology company, as we like to define it. We primarily build technologies and harness them for the purposes of anti-counterfeiting. Counterfeiting has become a global menace, essentially given the proliferation of various forms of technologies. Just about anything at all can be counterfeited, from your favorite cologne to your piece of shirt. But the stakes are typically higher when the item being counterfeited is one that has life-depending implications, such as medicines. So our company, a little over a decade ago, proposed a bold solution to the medicinal counterfeiting problem in particular, that by allowing end-user authentication, you can empower consumers and patients to be able to sift out a counterfeit medicine from an original one.
How successful has that program been?
We've seen close to about 2 billion product authentications. That essentially means about 2 billion times that consumers have had to dispel doubts and fears and have been able to pick the right product out of what would have been a counterfeit one. These products will be medicines such as gripe water that a mother wants to give the baby, or say a contraceptive that a young person might want to take in order to avoid a possible pregnancy, for instance, or very sensitive situations. So from the data, we statistically infer that hundreds of millions of people have been impacted by our work. And day in, day out, we get feedback from consumers who express their gratitude about how the technology has affected their lives. From the foregoing, from these indicators, we'll say that we've done very well. We've expanded our footprint from Ghana, which is a small country comparatively, to now about 14 different countries in Africa and Asia and counting. We've pivoted primarily from medicinal anti-counterfeiting to other areas like agriculture, for instance, where we are now working with ministries of agriculture around Africa to serialize packs of seeds and ensure that farmers are buying the right seeds and not buying unwholesome seeds and planting them and discovering down the line that they were sold a knockoff version of the seed that they wanted. So from these indicators, I think we can confidently say that we've been doing quite well.
How about people who say that no matter what people have been able to do, companies like yours have done, there's still a lot out there. Counterfeit medicine is all over the place. They're dominating the market. How much of that are you guys been able to tackle?
I would say that those concerns will be justified. and for two primary reasons. I think it was the first president of this country that said that the success of a thing must not be judged by how far it has come, but essentially by how far it has responded to the need that it was created for. The issue, though, has to do with the fact that companies like ours, and indeed many others that are working within the social enterprise space, cannot fix these problems by themselves. We do require the enabling environment. We do require governmental support and governmental ownership. If you take Mpidegree, for instance, you would realize that the countries in which we've been able to have the significant amounts of impact have been the countries where the governments have been welcoming. If you contrast the case of Nigeria with the case of Ghana, which is where we are, for instance, you see that, for instance, from 2008 to 2010, where counterfeiting of medicines such as anti-malarials and some forms of antibiotics was at a ridiculous high percentage of 60%. We've seen it drop significantly to 12% by 2016, and in some of the recent estimates to 4% and falling. That is a tremendous success story that we have been able to work with the authorities in Nigeria to accomplish. We have not been able to do that in Ghana, simply because we've not been able to set in motion the kind of partnership that we have seen in Nigeria.
Let's go back to ordinary consumers. Do they really understand what this technology is about?
In Africa, a lot of people buy their airtime. I think Africa has more mobile phones than any other continent in the world. Now, a lot of people already are very familiar with the mobile phone. And the way they buy airtime is to buy a piece of paper with a set of codes on it, and then to type that code into a mobile phone. People have been doing this system and have become acclimatized to it already. Our solutions simply leverage on that existing infrastructure. So all the consumer has to do is to first of all look out for the medicinal pack that has the code, and then to take that pack and send the code via SMS or USSD, and within seconds receive information.
That was VOA Spondiho speaking to Eugene Kwekubuadu, Head of Corporate Affairs and Marketing at Mpidegree, Accra, Ghana. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.